All right, it is 2 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started here. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to our webinar called What's New in Global Search Fall 2022 release. My name is Nick Figaro, and I am the marketing specialist here at Square 9. I'm joined today by our CEO, Steve Young, and our CTO, Brian Banet, and they will guide us through the newest features of Global Search. Just before we get started, this webinar is being recorded, and we will share the recording with you after. If you have any questions during the presentation, please submit them through the Q&A feature located at the bottom of the Zoom platform, and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. So I will hand it over to Steve to get started.
Great, thank you, Nick. Appreciate it. Welcome, everybody. Looks like we've got a nice crowd today. So as Nick had mentioned, we're going to be talking a little bit today about the new fall release. Feels a lot more like winter here in Connecticut right now. But again, this was originally scheduled as a fall release that is really making its way public right now. Going to go ahead and get started just quickly. Again, who I am, Steve Young. I'm the president and CEO here at Square 9. And again, I like to take these opportunities to connect with our customers and our partners and talk a little bit about the strategy, where we're heading with our product set. And with me today is Brian Banet, again, our CTO. Brian is my longtime partner in crime, and he's going to actually take you through some of the features in the product after I make their introduction. So as the agenda today, really we're going to focus on 4 areas of the fall release. We're going to talk briefly about pattern field validation, the advanced links feature, which is new, auto exchange, and also probably what I think is the most exciting, live fields. Brian's then going to take you through, give you a live presentation of those features and benefits. And then what he's hoping to do is take everybody through just a brief introduction of something brand new that's come out. Again, it's in the early adopters phase, but if you've made this presentation, you're going to be in the know. So we're going to talk a little bit about transformed AI. So a new feature for invoice capture in the global capture product. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and kick it off. If you're not familiar, here at Square 9, the global search releases are all named after robots. This is the Sentinel release. We refer to it in marketing as the Global Search Fall 2022 release, but this is, according to the technical folks, 6.3, the Sentinel release. So you'll see it referred to that in the documentation. And really, there was a primary goal that we had when we came up with the development of this release, and it was really to eliminate the reliance on external applications and tasks to process your business functions. It's kind of bringing everything together. So a couple of goals that we had, as far as certain things like data sharing and whatnot, we wanted you to be able to do that without any knowledge of complex SQL programming or the Square 9 database schema. We really wanted to be able to extend custom business processes, working the way that you want to work and allowing you to interact with other applications. So to do that, we want to improve the data layer accessibility for both our on-premise and cloud products. And again, ensure that our features are portable for demo and delivery purposes. That's probably not something we're going to focus on too much today. That's more for our resellers and something we introduced to them last week. Before we get started, though, I do want to mention that the new documentation is up online. Just so that you know, if you have bought Global Search in the last few weeks, this was the shipping version, 6.3, so you've probably already gotten it if you've placed that order from, I think, about mid-November on. At the same time, we are currently in process of upgrading all of our cloud clients to Global Search 6.3. So you will also have that. If you haven't been notified of your upgrade, you will be shortly. But there's really 4 sections in the documentation. What's new, which is, again, all the new features that are being released that we'll be talking about today. Any changes in the documentation, any prerequisites for installation, and of course, any defects that were addressed in this issue. So the first feature that we're going to talk about today is pattern field validation. And again, really the benefits of this to you, or it allows you to enforce much more complicated data entry controls. What we're hearing from our customers, especially for those who are using global search in an AP environment is that they really need to enforce the data structures. Why? Because they're taking that data and they're pushing it typically into a financial or ERP application. So it's got to be in the correct format in order to do that, so that there's not a data type mismatch or whatnot. At the same time, you can't enforce that without giving better messaging to your users, allowing them to know what's expected of them. So this offers different scenarios, ones where you can have multiple patterns can be considered acceptable on a single field. And again, they can provide both that data enforcement and custom messaging to set those user expectations. Again, I'm going to have Brian show this. I think this is the most effective way, but you will notice that instead of having to understand things like regular expressions or anything, they've gone out of their way to make sure that there's a library that you can expand on, certainly if you have those skill sets, but that the most common are included, things like data and comma currency, etc. The second feature that we're going to talk about today is that ability to link out to other applications directly from GlobalSearch. And this is a very cool feature. It's actually something that existed in a previous version of our on-premise product. We wanted to bring that into the web product as well, so that we have continuity across both platforms. But again, this allows you to reach out to third-party applications, to websites, to pass data to them. So for example, if you wanted to look up a transaction in NetSuite by passing a piece of data from an invoice, you could do that. If you wanted to be able to provide direct links for related searches right within GlobalSearch, you could. You could even do things like send an email out automatically, have it call your Google, your Gmail, or other web-based application, or schedule a calendar event based on a transaction that you're looking at. So very cool things. And again, I'll let Brian demonstrate those benefits. For those of you who are familiar with Data Exchange is an application which allows us to pass data between GlobalSearch and your line of business applications, most commonly your financial packages, but it could really be anything. So again, in the past, that was a manual process, one that you actually had to click on in order to make happen. What we've done is we've automated that. And again, we've eliminated a lot of SQL scripting that would have been required to make this work in an automated fashion. So Auto Exchange is basically an extension of Data Exchange to bring you a much better user experience. And then finally, as I said before, the thing that I think is probably the most exciting feature of this product is something that we refer to as live fields. And really, this is a toolbox for allowing you to work with GlobalSearch in the way that you want to, giving custom behaviors to it. And again, it does require a little bit of knowledge, although we do our best to share that knowledge with you through our documentation, but it allows you to insert programmable logic via JavaScript into the document viewer. So say, for example, you wanted to warn a user. If they're about to leave the document and there's a blank field, it will send a custom message saying, hey, before you go. It can request a reason code. So if you're looking at things like CFR Part 11 compliance, where, for example, if a change is made to a document where you would need to enter a reason or a reason code for making an edit, it can prompt for that. It can insert geolocation services. It can auto-annotate documents. It can put summaries of data. And again, I think I'll let Brian demonstrate this, which is much more effective. But again, performing calculations on information that it's extracting through Global Capture. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to turn this over to Brian, allow him to show this to you. Again, what we'll do afterwards is I'll have Brian kick it back to me, and then we'll just talk briefly about Transform AI for our accounts payable application. So Brian, why don't you go ahead and take it?
Thanks, Steve. I'll start sharing my screen. You just need to stop sharing yours. So Zoom lets us go. Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. As Steve said, my name is Brian Banet. I'm Square9 CTO, and I'll walk you through some of the new features of the fall 2022 release. As we mentioned, everything sort of starts with the documentation and has been rolled up, there is a new section in the documentation for GlobalSearch 6.3, which is in fact the fall 2022 release. So we have information on what's new. This is every new feature that has been added to the platform. There is a new section in our documentation, which is now dubbed documentation changes, which individually tags all changes to documentation, regardless of if that documentation is new to the 6.3 release or has just been updated for the 6.3 release. So now you can see from a single location, everything that's changed across the entire documentation set. For customers who are new to deployments or who are upgrading new or migrating to new servers, there is a prerequisites checklist page, and then of course a resolved issues list, which is both bug fixes and enhancements that have been rolled up into this release. So I'd encourage you to check out the documentation and learn more about these features. What I'm about to show you is just a sampling of what this release really is capable of, but hopefully it spawn some ideas and get some thoughts going about how you might be able to leverage some of these new features. And of course, if there's any questions, we're happy to help in any way we can. And if there's some ideas that you have about how you might be able to leverage them and you need to talk that through, we're here for that too. So I'll jump right into the product, which is on my second tab here. So the login page. And the very first thing you'll notice is the first feature we can talk about, which is now the ability to sign in with Google. So if you are a Google Workspaces customer, which is essentially Google's business tier product for email and office productivity, you can use that as your login source. This complements additional login sources that have already been added to the platform. Those include Okta and OneLogin and Azure AD. Of course, we still support individual Square9 users and groups. We also still support on-premise Active Directory environments, but any customer could also leverage these additional authentication sources if they choose to do so. I'm going to go ahead and log into the product so that we can continue down the demo path. And that gets us right into GlobalSearch. I'm going to duplicate our tab because I'm going to work in both the client and the administration section. So the first feature to really talk about is an administrative feature. It exists in the quick start section. So for customers, this is, as Steve mentioned, this is more of a dealer feature with setting up sales reps and setting up new environments and things like that. It is also very handy for existing customers to be able to deploy and test new functionality. So I'm going to go ahead and create a quick database. We're going to call this customer demo, spell. And that takes you now into your solution templates selection. So this is part of the product and has been for some time. Choosing any one of these sections will create those database structures, searches, and allow you to immediately start capturing relevant information to the particular section you happen to be working with. What's new to the quick start feature is the demo section, which is now closer to the bottom. So you have education essentials demo, business essentials demo, and automotive essentials demo. This not only gives you the baseline database structures for your archives, your fields, your searches, but also preloads the system with demo documents as well. So you can really get a cohesive view of a particular section of the database. It's also worth mentioning, and why I'm spending so much time on it on this conversation, if you enable the business essentials demo with documents, many of the features that I'm about to show you are preloaded into this database. So advanced links and live fields and several other features are all exposed in this version of the database. So you can easily create a new database in your environment for existing customers and experiment with some of these features. It's simply a matter of clicking through the prompts to create your new database, and you'll be off to the races with that step. I'm going to cancel out of that because I have this database already, and it happens to be right here. To get started, we're going to start by indexing a document. So I'm going to go import a new file. I'm going to pick this Zoom invoice right here. Our document viewer is going to open up. And the first feature that we're really going to talk about is data exchange. So if you're not familiar with data exchange, it's a feature that has been in the product for quite some time, but we have extended it in this release, as Steve mentioned, to start working in an automated fashion. So the best way to understand it is to show it. I'm going to begin to index this document. I'm going to tell you the vendor, and I'm going to give ourselves a date here, and 08, I think. Yeah. And now I can continue to index this document, but I would prefer not to. I would prefer the system to just set some default values for me. Now, data exchange, as I mentioned, is a feature that has been in the product. It is exposed by these opposing arrows above the indexing panel in the client. If I go ahead and click those opposing arrows, I can see I have a dynamics GP lookup. I have a set default values lookup as well. And historically, I would have to click on these buttons if I wanted any actions to happen. In this case, I'm just going to click the save button. And now you can see that automatically the record type has been set. Some IDs have been set. A vendor email has been set automatically. So data exchange has reached into the system and provided these default values for me automatically without me having to manually click on anything. All of data exchange is configured where it always has been. If we jump back into the administration panel, you can see on the archives section, if I go into a particular archive, a data exchange option, I have two set here, one for setting default values, and for the dynamics GP lookup again. If we edit, we now have the ability to see a section towards the bottom, which allows for the ability for data exchange to run automatically, either on the addition of new documents or on update of existing documents, or both, or neither. So you have the option to work in any way that fits your particular use case. And this feature really serves dual purpose. It allows us to do things like I've just demoed with the ability to set default values. It also removes the necessity to do back-end sort of server-side SQL jobs that run in a batch. And instead, you can now have them happen real time as the user is doing data entry. So kind of an interesting update to a long-standing feature, and a really relevant update that hopes to really streamline processes and make just usage that much easier in the product. And also eliminate some of those reliances on external things that are running on the back end as well. As we continue through this document, I'm going to talk about the next feature, which is pattern field validation or regular expression field validation, however you prefer to refer to it as. I'm going to go ahead and click on the key free button just to finish the indexing of this document and begin to demo this part of the feature. So with key free enabled, I can go ahead and find our invoice number, which happens to be right here. From a PO number perspective, there's not one on this invoice, which is fine. Excuse me. As I go down into the next field, you'll see amount. Now, when I put my cursor into amount, you'll notice on the document itself, everything that appears to look like a dollar amount is now highlighted in green to draw my attention to it, bring the user's eye to it, to helpfully dial them into specifically what information they might want to click on as it relates to the amount field. So this is a feature that is using regular expression patterns to go ahead and find data on this document, and that is configured on the field at the field level. So if we go into our field catalog and we find our amount field, you can see there is a regular expression pattern, which is a fairly complicated pattern if you don't understand regular expressions. But this pattern is basically saying, go look for anything that looks like a US formatted dollar amount. This feature has been extended to move past dollar amounts. And if we go down to first approver, you can see now instead of highlighting dollar amounts, we're actually highlighting email addresses. Because the approver fields for our vendor invoice approval platform expect email addresses as those approval names. So new to the feature is the ability for custom formatting and validation. So in this approver field, which is expecting an email address, if I put a dollar amount in it, you'll notice that the field itself is now flagged in red immediately and provides a description of what's actually expected in that field. So if I put my cursor back and I click on an email address, now you'll see that validation clears and I am free to move on or save this record. From a configuration perspective, again, if we scroll down to our first approver field and take a closer look, We now have use regular expression validation enabled. And as Steve mentioned, there are a handful of common validators that are available in the product out of the box. So things for dates and currencies and emails and social security numbers and phone numbers are all prepackaged and ready to go. If you are a customer that has other custom formats that they use quite regularly in field creation and management, you can add a list of your own items to this section for customers who are not in the US. You also can add non-US variants if that's relevant to you. Additionally, you can provide custom formats where you can provide your own format and your own validation message to control what's showing to the user. So for example, if I did not want messaging that suggested email@domain.com and I would prefer text that literally read, please provide a valid email address, you could provide your own messaging and your own custom formats when using this feature. So I'm going to go ahead and get some valid data and save our document. And moving on to the next feature, we're going to talk about a feature called advanced links. Advanced links are implemented both in the document viewer and in the search results grid. In the document viewer, you will see advanced links exposed as these callout icons to the left of a field. And in the grid, you will notice advanced links, excuse me. In the grid, you will notice advanced links implemented on the actions menu. There's a call out for advanced links. So the easiest way to really understand advanced links, it's basically the ability to call out to an external URL and provide data from GlobalSearch to that URL. In the case of Salesforce.com, for example, I have the ability to do a Salesforce lookup. So if I use the advanced link for Salesforce lookup and I click our button, which let's see here, go. You'll notice I get a new tab and that's taking me to a Salesforce login. If I go ahead and log into our Salesforce account, and of course it wants to two-factor me, which I'm not going to do right now, but that's going to ask me to go ahead and log into Salesforce and take me directly to that record. If I select multiple records, I will get multiple tabs. So that I have the ability to do advanced links, and that's going to do that lookup on both documents that I have selected in my viewer. Advanced links are implemented in the administration panel. You can see each of them are defined here. As I mentioned too, if you did go ahead and download the Business Essentials demo from the Quick Start menu, you will get these example advanced links. They are implemented in a very straightforward way. It's basically copy and paste the URL. You have the ability, and this is a Salesforce URL, of course. Certainly you have the ability to embed data, and the whole platform has type ahead support as well. So if I type 2 curly braces, I now get a drop-down list that will auto-complete any field I want to inject. The auto-completion is going to change the field name, which is defined here, to the actual value when this URL is created. So this, in this case, would be a value that looks something like this, which is the Salesforce internal ID for this record. So again, advanced links are implemented both in the grid and from the document viewer. In the document viewer, these call-out icons allow you to execute the advanced link functionality. There's 2 on this document, one on the vendor name. If I go ahead and click that advanced link, that's going to open a new browser tab. It's going to open up my Google for email. It's going to automatically address that email for me. It's going to automatically provide a subject for me and embed data from the document and begin to subject out and to begin to draft out this message where I can continue it and send it. So the ability to automatically address and provide data into email platforms. Additionally, we have the ability to, if I go ahead and click on our document date advanced link, that's going to go ahead and open a calendar, automatically subject that calendar. You have the ability to inject links back to documents. And so really creative ways, anything that can basically accept a URL and accept data in that URL, you have the ability to call out and trigger new actions and new behaviors. One additional example that's probably worth highlighting, if I jump into our accounts receivable archive, and open a document here, you'll also notice I have a phone number, and I have an advanced link on that customer phone number field as well. If I go ahead and I click that, you'll notice now the browser is saying, do you want to use your soft phone to create a new phone session? If I go ahead and click yes, that's going to go ahead and open up my soft phone client, which happens to be WebEx, and it's going to begin to dial the phone call right from the browser. So, depending on the data you're storing in GlobalSearch, you have all kinds of creative ways to trigger new actions and behaviors in the product. And that is the extent of advanced links. And the last feature that we'll be talking about is live fields. Live fields, if you're familiar with global forms, is similar to rules on global forms components. Live fields is essentially the ability to write JavaScript rules against GlobalSearch fields in the viewer. So the best way to really understand that is to see it happening. Again, I'm going to click on our key free button to re-enable this document for indexing and jump down to our table field, which is in the bottom. I'm going to highlight our quantity, which is 35. I'm going to grab the description for Zoom One Business, and I'm going to grab our unit price. I'm going to skip extended amount and select our quantity for webinar 1000, and again, our unit price. Now, I could certainly do some math and type in data into these extended amount fields, or we can leverage live field functionality to automate this for us. So if I just hit the save button, you'll notice a few things are about to happen. I'm going to click save. This document has updated and refreshed. You'll notice that the extended amount field is now populated. So it's calculating across rows. So we're calculating 35 times 1999 to get our $699 number, and then 1 times 140 to get our $140 number. And then you'll notice that we're going to calculate vertically in the extended amount column to total up the amount field, which happens to be right here. So that's one implementation of live fields and how they work. Another would be, if I zoom out of our document a little bit just to get some clarity, I'm going to go ahead and set the approved status of this document. So I've marked this document approved, and again, I'm going to save it. And you'll notice that when I save it, a couple things happen. The document has been stamped approved. So I marked the document approved, I click save, the document is automatically stamped approved. You'll also notice that the approval status has changed from approved to released to Dynamics GP. So in my particular workflow, I'm doing a release to Dynamics, and the document, when it hits an approved state by the approvers, automatically flows to release to Dynamics so that Global Action can take it and push it into the ERP, in this case Dynamics, but it could be any ERP if you're choosing. And so that's just another example of how live fields can be leveraged. And if we jump into the administration station, live fields are implemented in the field catalog. You will notice that they are marked specifically with this little orange glyph to the left of them. If you jump back to the documentation, you will also notice that live fields are completely documented. If we go to our What's New in 6.3 section, there is a link to the Live Fields Administrator's Guide, which gives you both a description of some various examples, some of which I've shown you, some of which Steve mentioned, warning when fields are blank, geolocation, and reason codes, and all sorts of row level and column level calculations. Additionally, if you open any one of these sections up in the documentation, it gives you the code example in JavaScript that's doing the work. You can copy and paste that into your live field, again, implemented in the field catalog. If we go ahead and look at any one of these live fields, you'll notice there's a section for JavaScript where you can paste that in and you'll be off to the races. So with that, I'm going to hand control back to Steve, and he's going to walk you through Transform AI, and I'll jump into the Q&A and make sure there's nothing that needs to be addressed.
Sounds great, Brian. Thank you. Exciting stuff. Again, I think, really anyone can see the direction that we're trying to go in is to make your content available to you as part of your business processes at any time. And, whether or not it's being able to, validate your OCR through row calculations, ensuring that you're getting quality data there, whether it is being able to, again, schedule a calendar event, make a live phone call based on a document that you're looking at. It's bringing everything together, and it's really allowing you to work more efficiently. And again, without a lot of that custom type of scripting that would normally be required. I love the fact that you guys have provided examples of the JavaScript in the one place where you do have some scripting involved for people to be able to leverage and just paste that in. So that's fantastic, Brian. Again, what I wanted to talk about now was something that we refer to as Transform AI, brand new feature. It's in an early adopter stage right now. We plan to launch this just about mid-December is the target date right now. We have a number of customers who have already leveraged it. It is now in production, being used again as part of our early adopters program. And I thought I would share it with you since I had an audience, I just can't not talk about it. So anyway, Transform AI is a new technology stack that we launched that focuses on, again, AP. And when we talk about AP, the fact is that we have just about 65% of our business starts in accounts payable. The reason why is there's a very realistic ROI to be found in accounts payable automation. There's money to be saved, and many businesses will make their initial investment in enterprise content management in that space, because again, it's got a proven 10 to 12-month ROI. So that's where we started with Transform AI. And what are the benefits of it? Well, if you've ever done vendor invoice capture, you'll know that there's a certain amount of template building involved. It could be a simple template, 5 fields, whatever the case might be, or could be a much more involved template. But not only there is the cost of implementing these templates, but there's also the cost of maintaining those templates down the road. So with Transform AI, we are leveraging the power of artificial intelligence to eliminate that template creation. We're extracting those relevant fields and intelligently extracting them and posting them within Global Capture and GlobalSearch ultimately. And it's pretty exciting, I have to tell you. It works both with printed data, meaning machine printed, or with handwritten. So it is a form of ICR, or intelligent character recognition. We've seen some pretty amazing results with that as well. But essentially, it comes down to 3 nodes in our workflow. So if you look at Global Capture, you have a capture workflow. And there's a lot of tools in that toolbox for you to build out a capture script. And that could be separating documents, extracting information, removing blank pages, all kinds of things that could be done in the course of that transformation. These are just 3 additional nodes that allow you to perform this specific function as part of an overall strategy. So the first is what we refer to as post payables. Again, essentially what this does is takes the document that you're working with or that you've captured and sends it to our AI cloud service. Again, at the moment, this is only available for our cloud customers. It may make its way, again, eventually into our on-premise customers, but at this time it is cloud only, and it is a cloud service. So again, the post payable button sends that out, or node sends that out, and the data is converted. Once that's completed, there's another node that says retrieve payable that's looking for any completed information. So again, you may send out several hundred invoices, and they're going to be done at different times. And basically what that does is just monitors any work that's ready to come back into the workflow and be posted. And then finally, we've got a third option for vendor machine learning. And this is a node that is used based on a per customer basis. Some people will leverage it, some people will not. But we found it increased the effectiveness of the workflows that we work in. And so I thought I'd take a minute and explain that. What are those benefits of machine learning? Well, one of the things with capturing invoices, and again, we've been doing this now for over 20 years, is that you will see OCR struggle sometimes with vendor invoice names. Why is that? Typically, they're incorporated into a logo, which is of a graphical design. And it's important that you get the proper vendor name. Again, if you're going to push this data into your accounting system, you want to make sure that it matches the information in there. So for example, we use a Fender invoice in our database, and it says Fender across the type. That's it. But it might be Fender Musical Instruments is the name of the vendor in your ERP, and that's what it needs to read. So even if it did OCR it correctly, it's still not matching up. So what Transform AI allows you to do with machine learning is that it can enforce a visual validation of the name the first time it's captured only. So again, this is a one-time thing where the first time it sees an invoice, it will look at it, it will say, hey, is this the correct name that you want to use going forward? And then every time it sees that invoice afterwards, it will use that machine learning to incorporate the correct name. It's a very powerful function. Again, it's something that really enhances the use of this and makes it much more functional, especially in high volume environments. So again, it's a one-time click and learn. You know, you literally click save and learn, and you don't have to worry about it again. So the data that we're extracting through Transform AI is, again, focused on invoice and receipt data. You can see the list here. I won't read all the way down it, but things like vendor name, invoice, invoice number, PO number, etc. It will automatically look at that document, recognize that information, and extract it. It's very, very powerful. It's very accurate, but again, it's not infallible. It is OCR. And again, it is artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, even, you know, your average person can make a mistake in identifying a field. So again, there's no difference there. If you look at the Transform AI pricing model, it's tiered right along the same lines as our capture transformation services. And this is a service that sits on top of capture transformation services. So again, if you're looking at your standard web-based capture platform, for 1,000 pages, that's $225. If we then added the AI component, it would add another $125, and you're looking at $350 a month. That's based on 1,000 pages a day, or, you know, invoices typically average about 1.3 pages. So again, you're looking at easily 800 invoices in a day. And again, do that math out over, you know, 250 business days, and you get an idea of the volume that you can handle. It's fairly significant. But again, we can scale that up to 2,500 pages per day, 5,000 pages per day. And again, if you go up over that and you're talking about really high volume, we can look at some special pricing based on that. So what's the value of this? I mean, really, yes, it's neat. AI is great technology, but what is the value of it? So just from an implementation standpoint, here's how we look at it. You know, we typically can create, deploy, and test 10 vendor templates in a single day. Our professional services are $1,750 per day. So if you as a customer came to us and said, look, I'd like to set this up, and I'd like you to create 50 templates for 50 of my vendors, that would be 5 days of professional services, which would translate to just about $8,700. Again, it's a worthwhile investment to automate a process which is very time consuming when done by hand. However, we can eliminate that with Transform AI. We now can do that work without having to build out those templates. Equally important is the fact that we can eliminate any additional template building down the road. We all know we're going to get additional vendors. With those vendors become new vendor invoice templates. And again, you're going to have to build out those templates to be able to automate that capture. And so that can either be done internally. You can contract us to do it, or one of our partners to do it. But again, there's a cost associated with it. And Transform AI alleviates all of that. So we were talking about it earlier today, and we said, geez, based on that pricing, what would it cost you? I think it came out to about $8 a day in order to be able to automate the capture of your invoices. And we said, well, I think it was $219 per hour. So if you could hire somebody to automatically to go ahead and file all of your vendor invoices away each day, extract all that data, and be able to feed it downstream to another line of business application for, you know, $2.19 a day, would you do it? And you know, the answer was uniformly yes. So with that said, I just want to talk to you about, if you'd like to see what Transform AI can do, we welcome you to send your documents. Simply reach out to us and let us know that you'd like to try out a handful of documents or a dozen documents or whatever the case might be, and we'd be happy to work with you. So simply reach out to your Square 9 reseller, reach out to Square 9 directly, and we'll be happy to assist you. And what's going to happen is we're going to present you with this. We're going to allow you to drop some documents in here, and you can drop as many as you like. Again, there are file size limitations on this, but say, for example, I took this out and I took an invoice. This is one from Cornell Imaging, our partners who provide all our hardware, and I can just drop that right in there. You could drop, I guess, any number, but Brian, is there any hard limitation on that, on how many they can drop at one time?
There's not a hard limitation given the nature of how it's implemented. The more you add, the longer it will take.
Okay.
That's not a reflection of the platform. It's a reflection of this demo and how it's being implemented.
Well, the fact that it's being shared across the country to thousands and thousands of people. So sure. But anyway, you can drop that in. And what I would do is I would take a few of your invoices, even some of your more challenging ones. We've had pretty good luck with it. And basically drop them in, provide your email address, and simply click submit. And what will happen is that will go out to the cloud, to our Transform AI service, and it will return that to you. And what you'll get back, for brevity's purpose, I just did this, but it usually comes back in about a minute or two. You'll get the results back. And you'll see in this case, it automatically recognized the vendor is Cornell Incorporated, the PO number of Aaron 100-322, the invoice number, the invoice date, and the invoice amount. It also provides you a copy of that original invoice for your reference so that you can look at it. It's a great way to see the power of this. It's a great way to test whether or not, some people, especially those of you from Missouri, it's a show me state. So people want to be able to see exactly what it is they're going to be getting back. But we're very confident in it, and we're sharing it out with everybody so you can see for yourselves in case you'd like to. So once again, if you're interested, reach out to your Square 9 partner, reach out to Square 9, your Square 9 regional sales director. And if you don't know who that is, you can also reach us at info@square-9.com, and we'll be happy to set up a live demo of it for you. With that said, that is going to be our presentation. I'd like to check first and make sure, see if we have any questions available for myself or for Brian. Looking in the QA screen, and I do not see any open questions at the moment. There were 5 that were answered. Shall we walk through those, Brian? I don't know. You were responding to those in the chat. Do you want to verbalize those or no?
Most of them were very customer specific examples, Steve, so probably not. There was a question about recording. This is in fact recorded, so that will be provided to all the attendees, I believe, for sharing purposes.
Yep. Very good. All right, then. If there are any more questions, we can hold on up. I think one just did come up.
Nope.
Unless that was a response.
I think it was just a thank you for the event.
Okay, very good. Well, if there are no more questions, again, I'd drag it out for another 30 seconds or so just to see if anybody pops in. But I hope you enjoyed what you saw today. I hope that what Brian shared with you was able to inspire you on some of the things that you can do with this product. Again, a lot of thought and effort goes into the way that our customers work. And how we can allow them to work more efficiently. And I think some of these features are just absolutely exciting and amazing. Things that I wish I had back when I was selling ECM back in the 90s myself. But it's really a brave new world. So with that said, it doesn't look like we have any questions. We'll let everybody go. We thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing this with us today. And if you have any questions, again, please make sure that you reach out to us at info@square-9.com. Thanks, everyone.